Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And hello, everybody. Welcome to another special prediction show here on the Juice Box. It seems like only a month ago, the guests at this time and myself discussed the first of the new Saturday night's main event shows that WWE produced, and it was a fun show. It was an interesting card, and it was very exciting overall, in my opinion. But now we get another one a month away, or a month removed. And to join me, the one, the only, Josh Isenberg, Saturday night's main event man. You hyped?
I am hyped, Juice. Thank you, as always, for having me come on another edition of the Juice Box. I think this is going to be another really, really solid Saturday night's main event. The first one might be hard to top just because of the personal rivalry that main evented that show and what we would see, later on after the match. But a good card, 4 matches, contract signing with said participants. I'm looking forward to it. And it's always a nice time where you can, get into a Saturday night on NBC or Peacock and just watch some nationwide professional wrestling.
Absolutely, especially when it's, December last one and this one January. Not many people are going to be doing things outside. I mean, it's snowing in Florida, it's snowing in New Orleans. So if you're inside, this is the place to be.
Absolutely.
So
the place to be. Yeah, that's what it's called.
Not billiards. But yeah, man, 4 matches plus that contract signing. This is like the perfect formula for me for a show that's not a traditional PLE. It's crazy that they've kind of come up with these 5 to 6 match PLE cards, or it's a non-PLE, but we're going to load it up with enough. We have 2.5 hour-ish Raws now. They're really fine-tuning their programming and how long and what they put in and how they strategize the layout of the show, the format, if you will. And this is just another result of that, and I'm thrilled. So let's just get right into it. Let's talk non-title first, considering 75% of this show is in the matches, at least, are all regards titles. So let's start off with the moment of the show, which will be Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu. This, I say the moment because I believe this is purely to get Jacob Fatu elevated to another level. Braun Strowman, winner of the greatest Royal Rumble, former Universal Champion, just all-time big guy in pro wrestling at this point. I mean, it's been so long since he's been in WWE. And Jacob Fatu is ascending to new levels each and every week. So this is going to be a huge moment for Jacob Fatu, assuming he wins. Josh, what do you enjoy most about these big hoss fights? And even though we know pretty much Jacob Fatu is going to take the win here, I don't think it hurts Braun because he's kind of doing nothing, and it just helps Jacob even more. So give me your thoughts.
Absolutely. I think whenever you see this reminds me very much of Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed when they had their feud going on Monday Night Raw and trying to, one up the other with feats of strength, right? And I'm not talking about the feats of strength at Festivus, but I think this match itself gives us a really good insight on how they view Jacob Fatu. They're not going to rush Jacob Fatu to the top, even though he could arguably be the most interesting and most main event ready guy in the bloodline, but he's only been with WWE for 5 months or so. So when I think of Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman on Saturday night's main event, I am looking forward to seeing what Jacob Fatu can do to give you that wow moment. We've seen the springboard off the top rope. We've seen, the Samoan drop and everything like that most Samoans do. I want to see a little bit more from him, whether it's breaking through a table, a splash through the table, maybe fighting through the crowd. I think this will be the perfect start to the night if you have these two big hosses go at it. But yeah, you're right. This is really going to just put more spotlight on Jacob Fatu. And Braun Strowman, I think at this point of his career, he knows what he is. He can be called in for any main event level caliber match or feud, or he could partner with somebody for a tag team because he has that physical size, that visual appeal for even the most casual professional wrestling fan to enjoy.
Absolutely. And, you said it perfectly there. Braun Strowman is probably fine with his role. He knows what he is. He's had his successes. And, Father Time, as they say, is undefeated. So at some point, you're just not going to be at the level you once were. And that's not to say Braun Strowman's not in a big moment here. This is Saturday night's main event, coming back to the second one now. And it's a big spot, and probably the biggest spot he's had potentially since, some of the Bronson Reed stuff and what have you, even further back that Universal run. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Jacob Fatu does here. If he picks him up for a Samoan drop or, something like that, I'm sure he'll hit the moonsault. I think it's going to be fun, hard hitting. I wouldn't mind if this opened, but to me, I just assume that any PLE or any special show generally starts and ends with a title match these days. So I'm not sure where it really lines up in the card, but I'm looking forward to it either way. Let's talk non-title real quick. Additionally, this contract signing moderated by San Antonio's own Shawn Michaels, HBK, Hall of Famer, multiple-time world champion, NXT figurehead, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. We get Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, who duked it out last month at Saturday night's main event, now having a ladder match that you will be in attendance for in Indianapolis next week at Royal Rumble. Winged Eagle and regular undisputed WWE title will be hanging presumably above the ring, which is going to be a wonderful visual, especially if you think of Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10 with 2 Intercontinental Championship belts up there. I think it's a really cool way to, parlay all of that. Contract signings normally are moot, but if it's going to be on Saturday night's main event, I got a feeling someone's going to get their ass beat. So quickly, do you think someone goes through the contract table here?
I think that always happens in contract signings, right? That's a standard of it. I would love for the contract signing table not to be that shiny silver top. They can upgrade at this point. It's the same one you see all the time. But I do think somebody goes through. I think at this point, you have to have Cody get a one-up on Kevin. Because, it's always been, after that spike and Cody going back and forth with Kevin, security breaking them up, they could go a route where there's not a lot of physicality, but then it kind of just fizzles, right? Like, what else is going to happen? So there has to be some sort of physicality. I wouldn't be surprised if something happens where Kevin gets the upper hand and maybe Kevin does something to Shawn Michaels. HBK is not on TV every single week in NXT. In what way can you get more heat on Kevin Owens than putting Shawn Michaels down with, maybe the pop-up powerbomb, maybe the stunner, something like that. That might be the best way to go about it, but then it just kind of debunks my fact that I still think Cody needs to get the upper hand here because they after this they maybe will see each other at SmackDown, but I don't think that you need to next Friday with Survivor Series with the Royal Rumble the next day.
Right, and I agree with you, and I'm going to present it like this because I find it just kind of coincidental and interesting in a way. I would say Cody does get some sort of one-up on Kevin Owens, whether it's on the mic or what have you, but I think it's going to turn into like Shawn Michaels kind of being like, haha, like being on Cody's side, like laughing about it and pissing Kevin Owens off. And what happened the last time Shawn Michaels was in the ring when the Winged Eagle was on the line? He got stunnered. So why not have Kevin Owens do what Steve Austin did back at WrestleMania 14 and stun Shawn Michaels? I think it gets even more heat as if he needs it. But it adds a lot more fuel. And the best part is that it is just next week. So you could set up something on SmackDown. You could have Shawn Michaels with a neck brace via satellite being like, man, it's like pulling for Cody or, whatever it is. A week away, this is a perfect vehicle to garner more heat for a huge, huge title match, ladder match at the Rumble. So even though it's not a true traditional match, I am looking forward to this segment maybe more than some of the other actual matches on the show. So.
Yeah, I agree. And with those three personalities in the ring, you know you're going to get a good promo, and you know you're going to get something. And I think that's a great opportunity, like you said, for Kevin just to get even more heat. Not that he needs it, but, you know, you can get as much heat as you need to really make you think that Kevin could potentially become champion, you know, 1 week from Saturday.
Speaking of potentially becoming champion, a championship that has never been in the hands of Sheamus, the Intercontinental title on the line. Sheamus, who shares yours truly's birthday next Tuesday, takes on Braun Breaker. IC title on the line here. I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb. I think Sheamus is going to win the Intercontinental Championship against Braun Breaker during this show. I think it's a perfect time. It's not a PLE. It's not going to kill Braun Breaker. In fact, Braun Breaker gets, you know, momentum based on being pissed off that he lost his championship going into the Rumble and then maybe earning himself a spot in the Chamber potentially. This is a nice little way to get Braun Breaker away from this championship for the moment, give him a little bit of a taste of the upper card, even though he's, you know, on this huge card, and give Sheamus that championship he never had. I know some people will say, well, Sheamus will tell you that he doesn't even need it. And it's the same thing as like Cena will say he doesn't want to win number 17. Yeah. Okay, well, Sheamus, I think, should do this. It'd be a fun match. They're going to kick the hell out of each other. Do you think Sheamus can pull this off, Josh?
I'm going to go Braun Breaker here.
Okay.
And I think, you know, I would like Sheamus to win because I think that Intercontinental Championship, since Braun won it back, has really been, I mean, I know it's a secondary championship, but it has really been obsolete on Monday Night Raw. You know, you're seeing Breaker in the crowd more than he is in the ring. And I think giving a fresh coat of paint, you know, on the waist of Sheamus is a good opportunity for him to get his moment to become, you know, the Intercontinental Champion for the first time. I think Breaker was much better chasing a championship than being a champion, and you can say that with a lot of people. But specifically for him, because, I mean, after SummerSlam, you know, has a quick drop of the title to Jey Uso, then he gets it back with help from the Bloodline. I want them to establish the IC title, and it's also the problem with the World Heavyweight Championship is Gunther felt more important as IC champion. Braun felt more important as a challenger more than a champion. I don't know why it feels like that, but that's how I feel. And I think the only way to rectify that is really letting Breaker win this match. There could be, you know, some shenanigans going on involved where he's not a guy that cheats to win, unless obviously the Bloodline comes in and helps him regain that title. But there has to be something where you leave the door open for Sheamus, because I do see the Intercontinental Championship having a lot of opportunity for other people. But it's always been Sheamus the past 6 months, you know, with the triple threat match at Survivor Series. They put in Kaiser in there, but it was still all about Sheamus chasing it. So I wouldn't pull the trigger just yet, because I do think it's more important for WWE to begin to establish a dominance in Braun Breaker as IC champion again.
That's something that I do enjoy from that response from you. Braun Breaker being Intercontinental Champion. This is, you know, the further he goes with it, the more he's solidified as that guy. Yeah. To me, though, I just feel that he has that already. And that's not to say he couldn't use more. I would not be shocked if he retained his championship here. But to me, like I said, I think there's a little bit of a window here to get Braun. Because if Braun Breaker goes into the Royal Rumble as IC champion, there's no way he's going to win, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If he goes into it as not champion, I think it elevates his chances. I don't think he'll win, but it elevates his chances for me that I think maybe he could be a guy, take it to the Final Four, maybe knock out 10 guys. Like, I think Braun Breaker could benefit from losing this championship. And who's to say he couldn't come right back, have another match with Sheamus down the line, and maybe regain it, and that, you know, and just play with that. Because Sheamus can win this championship, and I don't think this is, you know, going to be a 600-day reign. I think this would be one of the nice little conclusion pieces, to Sheamus's career as he probably winds it down sooner rather than later because he's been around for almost 15 years now. So, I'm here for either result, but I'm going to pick Sheamus to, I guess it's an upset, and beat Braun Breaker. So
right,
finally we disagree.
Finally, because we typically agree on everything. So.
Well, 15-9.
Not this one, 15-9.
All right, 2 matches left, both world championships. This is a rematch from last year's Elimination Chamber in Australia. Mm-hmm. Rhea Ripley defends the Women's World Championship against Nia Jax. Look, this match I enjoyed quite a bit when they had it at Elimination Chamber, and I really like these two in particular as dance partners. Rhea Ripley is a strong woman, physically imposing, and then Nia Jax is like triple that. So It is a great matchup between the two. I think this is, again, more of a showcase for Rhea Ripley as she just got the championship back. So give me Rhea to win. My question to you, Josh, is anything going to come out of this that doesn't involve Nia Jax? Like, is there someone coming back that could be like, if Rhea wins, does someone return? Is there any furthering from a storyline, or is this just going to be a Rhea Nia one-off and that's it?
So my thought process is this. We saw the video package of Charlotte returning. Charlotte is a big enough surprise to enter the Women's Royal Rumble, where you don't need to have a Becky Lynch also surprise return at the Rumble. And this being on national television, I think this is a great opportunity for Becky to reinsert herself, come back, and she could state she's going to be in the Rumble. She could just have her music pop and she stares down Rhea. She has so much history with Rhea Ripley and with Nia Jax. I don't think she's going to interfere. But this is a perfect opportunity because that storyline's already been ingrained. I mean, aside from her facing Liv Morgan in Queen of the Ring or whatever it was, the last time we really had a lot of her was her, build up to WrestleMania against Rhea Ripley last year. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for Becky to be announced for Rumble, or Becky just to come back, and then maybe on Monday Night Raw she states her entry into the Royal Rumble and not have to have her, Charlotte, and then obviously we'll have a few other people maybe from NXT or outside of WWE as surprises. I want a return here, and I think the best case scenario would be Becky Lynch returning at Saturday Night's Main Event after the match.
See, and I could agree with her, and I could also agree with Charlotte purely because Charlotte's already had a video package. Mm-hmm. There really is, sure, it would be a, quote, surprise if she was at the Rumble as an entrant, but with a return video package, like, already kind of being thrown out on TV, it's assumed she would be in that match. So I would kind of be like, hey, come out during this, after this, make your presence known. And then you have Becky, who's been really just in the shadows for a while now. That's where you pull off that Band-Aid and put her in the Rumble there. Which, by the way, we'll talk about that potentially next week with predictions potentially. But the loaded Rumble for the men. Imagine the Women's Rumble. This actually could be one of the most stacked roster for the Women's Rumble in its history, which is goes back to 2018.
2018, yeah, the first one won by Asuka.
That's right. So who lost to Charlotte at that year's Mania for her first loss, which was crazy.
Wild.
Speaking of that long. Right, and speaking of New Orleans Mania, I know we're a little off the beaten path here because we got one more match to tackle, but it looks like New Orleans could be getting a WrestleMania in the next couple of years. I did not go to 30, but watching 30, it was a wonderful show, capped off with a great opening match and a great closing match. And then 34, I was there. It was a wonderful time. Everybody partied on Bourbon Street, including wrestlers. Every bar had wrestling theme music. I'm here for another New Orleans Mania, man. What say you?
Oh, absolutely. I think New Orleans is built to hold events like WrestleMania, like the Super Bowl. I mean, the centralized location of obviously Bourbon Street and the French Quarters and things like that, close to, the Superdome. I think it's called Caesars Superdome now, or whatever it's called. Yeah, I love it. WrestleMania 30 was an incredible weekend. 34 was cut short for me just due to the passing of my grandfather, so I didn't get an opportunity to be there as long as possible. But I had great time there as well for 34, even though that event was seemingly 7.5 hours long. But it was, yeah. And then also with the main event of Lesnar in Roman that nobody really wanted to see again.
You mean Beach Ball Mania?
Beach Ball Mania, baby. But yeah, one of my favorite venues and one of my favorite cities to go to, New Orleans, especially like you said, there's always something going on. There's always wrestling fans. That street is basically shut down with wrestling fans. Looking forward to it. If they do announce it, I'll be excited to make sure I go there, especially thinking that I'm not going to be in Vegas for WrestleMania this year. It'll be good to get back, WrestleMania 42 in New Orleans.
Exactly. And, Vegas doesn't seem very possible for me, let alone a lot of people I've seen online. Even the individual tickets that have been now released, it's like upwards of $1,000 for like 400 level.
I can't justify that.
I don't think a lot of people are going to justify it, but I'm sure it'll be packed to the brim. But I think you get it to because like Philadelphia, it was WrestleMania is expensive, but depending on the city, it can be more affordable. And Philly, I felt was affordable enough. New Orleans, I'm sure would be affordable enough. It's just Vegas. It's like a perfect storm of high price stuff that there's only one. Like Vegas is it. Like if you're in Vegas, there's only Vegas stuff to do. There's no like outside stuff. So everything's going to be elevated in price.
And it's amazing with pricing because whenever I think about going to WrestleMania in Los Angeles, it was more expensive in Philadelphia than LA. And you're thinking to yourself, how in the world is that? And I mean, just supply and demand, right? Like as big as it gets, and it continues to get bigger and bigger. But Vegas is kind of, you're right, that perfect storm of it's just going to be so much money to get in that building. I think the on sale tickets, the lowest, like you said, was what, $700 or $800 or something like that. Yeah. And I've been in Allegiant Stadium for SummerSlam, and this was right after COVID, so 21, I think it was. It was not completely full. They had that kind of, the one part of the end zone tarped off, but it was still a packed place, and even those tickets were a couple $100, a couple of years ago. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to move forward with pricing. But, I mean, everybody that goes there, they're going to go there and they're going to have a great time. But it might be a little bit of a time for me just to sit on my couch and throw a little WrestleMania party that if I do, I think you might have to be included.
I hope my invitation doesn't get lost in the mail. Yeah, I mean, I'll be looking forward to it. I absolutely am in for partying up for WrestleMania, especially because it's 2 nights now. It's like, why not? It's a great weekend event. So leading into that, though, I'm not sure if Gunther's going to be world champion by then, or will he be? That's for us to decide. First of all, Rhea Ripley, that's who you're selecting, just in case?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, me too. Didn't want to get anything misconstrued there. Gunther defends World Heavyweight Championship against Jey Uso, main event Jey Uso. Supposedly this is the main event, so again, he is main event Jey Uso here. Jey Uso is like, last year he was kind of really ascending and became his own thing, and yeet, and outside of maybe the subpar WrestleMania match with his brother, unfortunately, I feel like everything else has been coming up Jey Uso, coming up yeet. And the first Raw on Netflix, he comes out with a huge entrance with Travis Scott, and like he just keeps getting bigger. Yeah. However, is he going to be big enough to win the World Heavyweight Championship against Gunther? Or will Gunther take this title presumably to Raw in Atlanta, and will we see Goldberg?
Oh, God, I hope not. No, but probably. It's interesting because you're right. This time last year, we're thinking, man, main event Jey Uso is, he could be as hot as he ever will be, but he's continued to ascend. And I've been a proponent for many years, and I know we've talked about this on the podcast, about Jey Uso, aside from Cody, obviously. Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre were the only 2 people that I thought had a realistic shot to beat Roman Reigns for that championship. Again, leaving Cody out of it during that run. because even at that time, Jey Uso was incredibly popular. But I mean, times 10 now, he is the most. I would say he's probably the most popular wrestler in WWE right now.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Like Cody could be the top guy. You could have anybody as any champion, woman or guy, or not going to be as popular as a guy who's just popular by being popular. Like he doesn't need to be a champion. He's just exceptionally popular and with everybody. And WWE knows it and they back it.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I almost wonder though, to be honest with you, if Gunther and Goldberg is a match that just doesn't need the world championship.
I've thought about that too, but I just don't know if that's the time to pull the trigger on a Jey Uso title win.
Yeah, I guess so. But again, just playing devil's advocate with you here, if you give him the title and he's not in the Royal Rumble, I mean, there's more stories with Jey being World Heavyweight Champion and the potential winners of the Rumble. And we'll talk about this next week, obviously, on the Juice Box. But there's, there's Punk, there's Sammy, there's Kevin, there's Roman, there's all of these guys that have not a beef but have a linked story to Jey Uso. So whoever wins that, it's not going to be an easy. Is it going to be Cody? Like, are you going to choose Cody or are you going to choose Gunther? I mean, and then you think about John Cena. John Cena has a little bit of history with the bloodline. So there's a lot of options and a lot of avenues. If I had to pick, I'm going to go out on a limb. I do say they pulled the trigger on Jey Uso becoming champion. I do think that this is the right time for him. And I think he's done so much to, I guess, increase his popularity where you have to strike while the iron's hot. And Jey as World Heavyweight Champion going into a WrestleMania, for me, makes more sense for many stories than maybe a Gunther and John Cena, just because you want to see Cena compete for a 17th World Championship.
I agree with some of your points, and then the other points, the Cena thing is throwing me off because if Jey Uso's champion, who's he going to go against? Because I think the money is Cena and Cody, but then who goes against Jey Uso like that? I mean, it could be anybody. You could get Jey Uso and Jacob Fatu. You could get something in a inner bloodline type thing for the world title, but. Yeah. Also, I think it would. Again, I'm not saying this will happen, but I've been a proponent, to use your word, great word, of Jey Uso potentially winning the Rumble, because to me, and my initial thought was, this is before Cena had his farewell thing. We knew how this was going to kind of lay out, because now, again, it seems like Cena Cody could be the move. I'm thinking Jey Uso could win the Rumble. Jey versus Cody would be a great we're best friends, former tag champs. That hilarious press conference they had last year. Why not settle this in the ring? But now, even if that's not the case, now Jey Uso winning the Rumble and leading up to parlay to play off what you were going to say with, if Jey's world champion, why not strike when the iron's hot? I think if Jey Uso has that championship opportunity and he's lining up for a huge match at WrestleMania, I think pulling the trigger at WrestleMania would be the coup d'etat. And it would really, that's when they do. They make big moments at WrestleMania. But striking when the iron's hot is also something WWE does tend to do, especially with this new regime. Anything is possible in the World Wrestling Federation. So
that's right. So you have Gunther, though? You think Gunther retains?
I ultimately am going to say Gunther purely because of the Goldberg speculation. I agree, though, with you. That if they do that, Goldberg Gunther, I don't necessarily hate that as long as Goldberg's in shape enough, but I don't think
where would you have that? Where would you have that match at WrestleMania?
Man, if Gunther, is Gunther champion or no? If in the match, let's see.
I guess that's another thing to think about.
I'll just say it's for me. If Gunther is champion and Goldberg's going to go against him, you could do that match at Chamber, I guess.
I think so.
And I still don't think that would be Goldberg's last match, but he could have the beginning of his final run getting a huge opportunity. Doesn't work out, but it was still respectable. We talked about it before. Gunther at this point is more of a respectable kind of tweener guy, and I think it could be a mutual respect with him and Goldberg, especially since Gunther told Bret Hart that his favorite wrestler was Goldberg, even though it was tongue in cheek. But
yeah. Yeah, and I think whenever you think about Elimination Chamber, that's a really good point, because we do know the Chamber match typically gives you that other number one contender. So you can go into Chamber with a Goldberg Gunther, and whoever wins the Chamber match could potentially be the one that faces Gunther at Mania. For me, if Gunther was more dominant in this reign, and it's not his fault really, it's just he wasn't on the debut episode of Raw on Netflix. Like, they didn't spotlight him really aside from a video package.
Yeah.
There's just something pulling me to think that the 2 world title matches have to be about their biggest storyline. And I'm not saying that if Jay was champion, that maybe somehow he has more than one opponent at WrestleMania.
That I could absolutely buy, because there's maybe not enough on the bone for just Jay and someone straight up outside of like Cody, but he's champion, so it's not gonna happen. Yeah. So a multi-man match actually would work, and then you could do a Jacob Fatu and someone else. Yeah,
you could do members of the Bloodline all trying to come for Jay, who, he was the right-hand man. He was supposed to be next in line. Solo kind of jumped that, over him. Jacob Fatu. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues to go with, and that's why I think, would I be surprised if Gunther win? Absolutely not. I think the smart money, or if you're putting $1 down, you're probably going to put it on Gunther, especially because this match has really been rushed to Saturday night's main event.
Right.
And I think it's just because they needed a World Heavyweight Championship match. So what better way than your most popular guy to be in that main event?
Right. Plus, I don't think the world title. Sorry, I think the world title is going to be like it's the big match at the Rumble. There's 2 Rumble matches, and then you'll have the ladder match. So I would assume Gunther won't wrestle, and then Jey Uso whoever is not champion out of this match will likely be in the Rumble then. Yeah. So
I agree.
They needed this to be here. And like you said, they needed a world title match on this show, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to sidetrack, but with this being on Saturday night's main event, and what we see at the Royal Rumble with the 2 Rumble matches, obviously will take about an hour and 5 minutes each. Maybe with everything in the video packages, you're looking at the 2 hours and 20 minutes, and then the Cody match with entrances and everything will get you close to 3 hours. Do they do another match? Do they throw another match on that card, or are they going to just do 3 matches?
Oh, I think they'll do at least 4.
And what would that
3 matches? Like? Oh, I don't. Hey, that's a good question. Could they fast track Gunther wins, and then Goldberg comes out on Monday, and then Gunther and Goldberg at the Rumble? You're right. I mean, you're about to travel out to Indy for this show, and it's going to be a 3-match card. Mm-hmm. Here's another random thought. Let's say Dwayne doesn't work WrestleMania. Good friend Dwayne. It could be Jey Uso, Jacob Fatu, and Roman for the world title, and I don't think that'd be far-fetched considering the history and the bloodline factor.
I mean, hell, why not just throw Solo in there too?
Whoa. Yeah, because you don't want to bury Solo. He's still got some equity. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at us like ourselves into from the Bloodline Civil War to the Bloodline Fatal 4-Way.
Yeah, see, a lot of options. But, whenever I think about just this entire Saturday night's main event, it gives you a nice stopgap between, 3 or 4 weeks of Raw SmackDown. No real PLE, since Survivor Series, right? They had Saturday night's main event, but with Survivor Series.
And they had because they had the first episode of Raw. It was Survivor Series. 2 weeks later was Saturday night's main event. 3 weeks later was that first episode of Raw, and now 2 weeks later we get this. So they've done a lot in 6 weeks without a PLE.
Yeah, and I like that too, because I think it gives you, the first Saturday night's main event was obviously predicated around Cody and Kevin, but you had the Women's United States Championship, which was a great moment. You had Liv Morgan Rhea Ripley coming out during Saturday night's main event. It's just, I think this is a perfect card to spotlight some of your major players that might get lost in the shuffle if they're in the Rumble match, and not forcing that world championship as the 4th match. But I still think that whether you have a women's championship match, or, can you do a tag team title match? I think there needs to be one match between those three that are kind of your quote-unquote bathroom breaks. I mean, last year they had Logan Paul and Kevin Owens for the U.S. Championship, a good match, but it was 13 or 14 minutes, just to kind of, cleanse your palate before the main event. And I don't know which match that is yet. It could be a Shinsuke Nakamura, who we haven't seen much of, but he's not really feuding with anybody. Just something, but I just don't know what that something looks like.
Yeah, you make a great point. I really didn't even consider that there's only been 3 matches announced for the Royal Rumble, and two of them are hour-plus long matches. So it's like you're running out of time to even do anything. So yeah, I mean that's a very interesting point, like you said. So it'll be very fun to see what they come up with by the time you're arriving in Indianapolis next week.
Yes, sir, and I can't wait for it.
So last thoughts overall, 4 matches, 3 of them for titles, and then a World Championship Hall of Fame moderated segment for the contract signing. Overall, and I think we're going to get Jesse Ventura again for this, as a matter of fact. So thoughts on Saturday night's main event this time around as a whole before we sign off? Yeah,
just a totally well-developed card. Might not have the glitz and glamour of it being the first one in how many ever years. But again, this shows you that Triple H is somebody who wants to put time into these matches in a national spotlight and not be rushed. And you have 2 hours, 4 matches, contract signing, plenty of time to give those matches 15, 20 minutes. The Braun Strowman match with Jacob could be 10 minutes of just pure physicality and distribute that extra time for other matches and other segments. So I'm looking forward to it. I know that I might be on a little bit of a delay watching it, but I'm excited to catch that. And it's going to be a good Saturday night's main event. I'm looking forward to see what San Antonio brings. They always have a hot crowd in Texas, especially in San Antonio. And it's going to be a fun Saturday night, a week before the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, man, I agree. I think this is a solid little card for a show that's not a PLE, but it's treated pretty much like one. I really like this, live on NBC, but it's simulcast on Peacock. I hope they continue it being live, because I know the first 2 in the 06 run were live, and then they went to taping them. I think in this era of WWE, it is way more likely that they will do all of them live, because they can and they thrive on, live shows and getting things out immediately and having, the world be a buzz about it, especially whenever it's a commodity like Saturday Night's Main Event on a network like NBC. Yep. So I have no reason to believe this is not going to, kill it in every sense of the word. Like you said, San Antonio is a great wrestling crowd. They've had, Royal Rumbles in the past. They've had a lot of great shows throughout their history as a city. So I am also looking forward to it. I will not be on a van delay for the show. I will be likely watching it as soon as it comes on. So cannot wait. I appreciate you hopping in the juice box once again, Josh, and I do hope that I can talk to you next week for some Royal Rumble predictions. How's that sound?
That sounds wonderful, Juice. I'm looking forward to it, bud.
Hell yeah. For Josh Isenberg, at Josh Isenberg 4 on X/Twitter, I am Juice Springsteen at Juicy Steen, and this has been the Saturday Night's Main Event prediction show right here on The Juice Box. That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.